Welcome, my friends. My name is Irvin, also known as Kobu Man. Thank you so much for joining. Today's video will be about whatever the title says. The reason for that being is because I need to actually figure out what we're going to talk about. And for that to happen, I will have to go to my website, which is cosmicnovo.com. And I'm just going to pick a random article that's on my website, probably one of the more popular ones over here on the left-hand side, and just kind of talk about a random thing that comes up. For example, here's a top 20 network administrator interview questions and answers article. And I'm going to pick that and kind of scroll down and pick a random interview question that we can kind of expand on. You know what I mean? So let's see here. By the way, I have a video on this particular article as well. If you want to check it out, it's definitely on my channel. Let's see here. Can you name different types of network cables? What is a subnet mask? I think I have a video on that. Can you tell me the difference between a workgroup and a domain? I'm not sure if I have a video on this, but you know what? Let's go for it. Now, I'm going to just go to read this answer here to this question, and I'm going to expand on it, meaning I'm going to explain it in a way where it's pretty easy to understand to anybody, even if you're like brand new to computers. I really like helping people who are just starting to learn about computers. So this video will be for you. So all right, let's get to it. So the question is, can you tell me the difference between a workgroup and a domain? My answer here is, with a workgroup, you have a collection of systems that are connected to the same network, but have their own set of rules and permissions set at local level. So let's go ahead and expand on that right away, and then we'll come back to the domain part here because it ties into it a little bit later and at a grander or a bigger scale, if you will. So, all right, let's have a look. If you have more than one computer at home, chances are that in order to share any, data, any files between them, or, to be able to remote desktop into any of them, chances are you would have to be connected to the same work group. Otherwise, you won't be able to see the other computer on the network. And I mean that in a easy manner. You can always see which computers are connected to the network by, you know, pinging the, certain, names and this and that. But that's not what this is about. This is about having an easy access to other computers on the same network, which in a basic home environment would be considered as a work group. So what happens is when you have, let's say, 4 computers at home, and one is yours, maybe your other one is your wife's, your kids, or your brother, your sister, and you guys want to kind of share information, share files across, between each other computer, then you have to join each computer to the exact same work group, which basically creates a mini network at a software level. So this is different from a physical network where it's just, you plug in all the computers to the same router, and it's different from all the computers connect to the same Wi-Fi. That's a physical layer of the network. This is a software layer, which are something we are dealing with right now. So in order to access the software, meaning the operating system of each computer, then we have to make sure they're joined in the same group. So if you look at the properties of this computer, by the way, these are just system properties that I went to so we can get some basic information. You can see that the name of this computer is tech support, and it just says full computer name is tech support. This is related to the networking part of it, but it's the same, so that's good. And the work group here is called new server 0. So each computer that is connected to the same router at home, to the same physical network, will have to be joined to the same work group if you want to share all the media across that same network, including printers and all of that stuff. So let's look at some advanced settings which will kind of tie into on how to join the computer to the same work group. Here are system properties. And another way to get to the system properties, aside from going, of right-clicking to this PC and then properties and then having to click on change settings, you can get to it through control panel as well. This is one of the things I don't really like about the Windows 10 operating system. You can see that a system option also came up here, but let's see how we can get to it to control panel, and we are getting to the same thing. So if we select system in the control panel, we'll get to the same area, but then from here we can either click on advanced system settings or change settings here, and we will pretty much get to the same place. The only difference is if we click on advanced system settings here, it will pull up in just a different tab. You see that? Which is, I really don't like this about Windows 10, but I digress, because they don't make it simple just to get to this main advanced setting. I guess this is designed to protect users who may make changes that may break their computer. Anyway, let's get to the first tab of the system properties. I'm going to close this out, and this is how you would change the name of this computer or add it to a domain or a workgroup. So while we're in the computer name tab, we can just look down here, and it's the last button that we have that's called change. We can select that, and here we can change the name of it. We can have it join to a specific workgroup. So here, this would be empty, chances are, and then you would just type in new server 0. And then click OK, and then you would have to restart the computer, and then your computer would be joined to that same workgroup. So after you do that for all the computers and reboot all the computers, you can now access resources for those other computers over the network. So if you go here, and then you can see that if I expand network, that different computers will show up accordingly. As soon as it loads a little bit, some of the computers are asleep, which may take a little bit for it to pull up. But generally speaking, once you are connected to the network, you can see the other computers that are on that same network and everything else that is connected to the same network. Here you can see there's a WebOS TV connected to it, and there is TS client as well connected to it. Okay, so that's the network. That's the network workgroups. Very simple. It's kind of something you would do in a small business environment or just at home, just so you have basic access to the same resources. Another thing you can do once you connect to the same network, or I should say same work group, you can use remote desktop. So you can use remote desktop connection like this, and just type in the name of the computer you wish to connect to, and I'm going to connect to one of my computers that is called Kobuman 1. Let's see if it'll actually let me do it, since I'm already using remote desktop. You can see that I'm already connected to remote desktop. I wonder if I can double remote desktop. Let's see here. The computer is asleep over there. I'm looking at it right now. A lot of times it actually pings the computer and it just wakes up, which is also called wake up on LAN. But for some reason, my computer is fast asleep over there. Just a sec, I'm gonna turn it on so we can try this again. Okay, so I went ahead and touched the keyboard to wake it up. All right, let's see now. Configuring remote session, which means that it's aware that the computer is awake. Let's see. There it is. Now I can connect to Kobuman1 using the username, login, and password that is on that computer over there. Okie dokie. So now we have that done. Now let's go back to the domain. So with a domain, you have a group of systems that are bound by the rules of centralized authentication server. In a domain system, each In a domain, each system has to connect through the domain server using provided credentials, also known as a domain controller. So, somewhat similar to a workgroup, domain is a controller or a computer. Just imagine a server somewhere that controls the data that is shared between all those computers that are connected to that physical network. So instead of joining a work group, your computer would be joined to a domain. And that domain also controls your login information. So instead of using a login that's on your computer, which is in my case YT login, you can see it here. I'll show you what I mean here. These are local. Here we go. Geez, this Windows 10 really is so much different and so roundabout, not very user-friendly when it comes to. I digress. Here are the local accounts that are on my computer. So these are local accounts that lets me log in locally to this computer. So BUCO and Kobuman test account, they're all local accounts. As you can see, they're literally labeled local accounts. There's another way to connect to a computer without having a local account, and that is a domain login account. But for that to work, you have to join your computer to that same domain. And if we go back to these properties and click change settings here, and then click change once more here. So instead of joining workgroup, we can join our computer to a domain. So we just have to select domain here, and then we can type in domain name, just for example, and then we can, call it, I don't know, koboman.com, whatever the name of the domain is. So once we do that, we would click OK, and then this computer that is named tech support will join that domain. However, you also have to go to the domain controller, the server, and tell it that you are allowing a computer name called tech support to join the domain. So once you click OK, it's going to ask you to restart the computer, and then the computer will restart or reboot, if you will. And then you get a login information from the domain controller that says, okay, now you use this login. So now that you are joined to that same domain, now you can start to share data between all of those computers that are connected to the same domain, and you also have access to other resources that are available for that domain. So let's say there's a shared drive somewhere, or some kind of a database or something like that that is only available for the computers that are connected to that specific domain. Now you will have access to that. So if you're at work and somebody says, okay, I want to connect to this server, or I want to access this shared drive or something like that, and they can't, if you look at their login information on the domain controller, you can see which resources they have access to. And once you go there, you can see all that information. So chances are you may have to adjust their access to the specific resources. I hope that was pretty easy to understand. This was one of those slower pace videos because these things can be confusing to people, and finding a good way to explain this in a slower pace is pretty rare to find on the internet. So, and I know that a lot of my viewers appreciate this type of explanation. So I hope you like this. Please leave a like on this video. I'd appreciate it a lot. And if you have any questions or any video suggestions related to, just PC support in general, feel free to leave it in the comments box below. And don't forget to subscribe. All right. Thank you so much for watching, and you have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.